Meccano part number 20A, 2-inch pulley wheel. Hi folks and welcome back. It's the fifth build of the Meccano Space 2501 set, the Jupiter Tri-Ship and the Mercurian invader. And sitting here looking at the computer screen, trying to find the first thread of this script, I'm listening to one of my cats snoring, asleep, in a cat bed. And the temptation to have a snooze is huge. One of my greatest complaints of these multi-kit builds is this: you almost need two sets to have something to play with. The Army multi-kit allowed you to build a field gun and limber, or a lorry, or half-track to tow it, but you couldn't do both. The highway set before had numerous vehicles that you could work with, but only ever singly. At least with this set, I do feel Meccano attempted to combat that. And this build is one such attempt. The two spaceships are very simple builds, but they do allow for some playability together. And the names inform us who is the protagonist and who is the plucky British hero to save the day while drinking tea and eating cucumber sandwiches. Was that the other way round? The evil British villain is trying to take over the galaxy by forcing what is, after all, a very strange and quirky sandwich on everybody else. And is it a scone or a scone? And that's before we get into whether sweet is better than savoury. Mind you, there's nothing like a cheese, bacon and onion scone, hot with butter on it. And now I'm hungry. And when this kit came out in 1979, we had great TV weekly sci-fi programmes to fit our models into. After all, this is the end of the imaginative play and the beginning of the electronic toy era. This is the time when play was inside our heads and we could hear the sound of the booster rockets firing, the roar of the missiles as they attacked the target, or our sister. And I think that sense of imaginative play has gone now. It was a skill that was learnt, passed down by either parents, older siblings or friends. Not long ago, one of my friends brought his young son a bucket of plastic soldiers. Sat there, he looked at his dad and asked what they did. My friend, who grew up like I did with Airfix toy soldiers, explained what you did. Even tried to play with them with his son. He was watched the whole time by a very puzzled child, unable to grasp what to do, who then went back to playing Call of Duty, immersed in a computer game, but unable to be immersed in the imagination of play in his own head. Sat there, my friend said, it was one of those really sad moments of being a parent. A moment of remembering his childhood, how his father, an ex-paratrooper, had taught him how to use tactics and weapons in play, to his son's world of computer-based alternative reality. And even for him, the guns weren't as loud as they used to be. The roar of the jet fighters seemed duller, and no longer did the tanks rumble across the battlefield. Looking at the new films being released, I see sci-fi falling into a number of different types. But the underlying story seems to be that of a very dark future and overcoming impossible odds. It also seems to be a common trope to question our opinion as to who really is the bad guy. The other common storyline is that of Earth's final call to arms. The aliens have invaded with overwhelming numbers of technology, or plot-related science that science can't explain. But never mind the science, because it's plot logic. But would we survive an alien invasion? Without movie stars, that is. So normal, real people, without the last one-of-a-kind prototype weapon stored in Area 51. And unfortunately, the meeting might well not go in our favour. To reach us, they will need to be well advanced of our current technology levels. And for any species to be a dominant race, and also to advance to the higher levels of technology, aggression is a must-have needed trait. And with that comes a level of unpredictability and violence. After all, the very act of showing an open mouth in public could be a capital offence in their culture. Sniffing each other's bum might well be of religious importance, and not doing so could cause offence. Of course, there is a belief that a higher society also needs to overcome its violent, uncontrolled past, and that, in all honesty, we are the barbarians that they would not want to interact with. We are the uncultured ones that need to be controlled by stopping us getting into space. And what would they want from us anyway, apart from possibly using us as a food source or other resources? The narrative is not much different to what happened in America when Europeans arrived. The local indigenous peoples were soon outclassed and conquered by new technologies and a powerful foe, behaving in a manner that was unexpected and takes violence to a new level. But probably the greatest battles would be the ones happening inside our bodies, both for invaders and defenders alike. And that would be the unintentional germ warfare that our own immune systems would be fighting. Because however intelligent we are as a race, at some point somebody is going to open a sealed environment and either let in or let out the wrong gases, allowing a cross-contamination event to happen. And in all the gory glory of the movies, things would go south very quickly. And oh boy, would we be regretting things, and maybe just feeling a little bit awful. But have you ever wondered why the film industry makes movies that make us feel awful? The answer is simply this. The ending, when the good guys win, makes us feel great. But to get that feeling of sheer joy, that elation, you have to have the low first. One of my secret guilty loves is the 2012 movie Battleship. The moment that the good guys win, which we all know shouldn't happen, but still does. That moment of handbrake turning an Iowa-class battleship, bringing the main guns to bear, while added to the perfect music track, AC/DC's Thunderstruck, leaves us rooting for the inevitable ending when, because of plot science, the good guys win. The main character finds true love with a plucky lead female, and everybody else is lauded as a hero. Have you ever wondered if the end of movie love affairs would ever last after the event is over? And the answer is probably not. Once the events are over that made the relationship work, the other person's faults rise quickly to the surface. No better was this shown than on a reality TV show where couples were stranded on a desert island. One team had perfect chemistry when faced with what looked like unsurmountable problems. In real life, post-show, their relationship quickly failed and they ended up splitting up. At the end of the day, there is a part of me that thinks it's probably in our best interests not to meet our galactic neighbours. For all that I think the human race has some amazing qualities, I also think it has some major failings. Our inability to get on with ourselves has to be up there, somewhere near the top of the list. The disregard that we can so callously show to those that need our help the most, while lauding those that need no support. And no, I'm not having a rant about right versus left, but more a rant based on 20 years of nursing and therapeutical services and mental health, a lot of it working with abuse cases, both child and adult. And that gives me a bias. Having seen some of the worst that we have to offer the galaxy, I'm not sure that we're fit to be amongst it. But then I've seen some of the best. I've worked with people who can only be described as heroes. And then there's the other side to humanity, our ability to have a misplaced sense of humour that isn't always understood or, more to the point, appreciated by those on the receiving end. Like the time I was working a night shift on a ward. For those of you who have never worked nights in a mental health ward, it's one of two shifts. And the ward I worked on housed patients who were spicy, very spicy. Most of them locked up via the courts under the Mental Health Act. Firstly, it's either the most boring shift ever, or you're fighting for your life in the middle of the night with somebody who's having a psychotic moment and really doesn't know what they're doing, to be honest. A lot of people I've cared for were lovely people some of the time. It's just when they weren't, life got very interesting very quickly. So after 2 very boring shifts, I decided to bring a shop dummy into work for the last shift. As a nurse, you're meant to do your nursing rounds every hour, which is to check to make sure the person's still alive and breathing. And we had a patient who liked to have a nice hot bath early in the morning. Like an hour-long soak, it made his day. But the law says that we weren't allowed to get the patients up before 7 a.m, as forcing somebody to get up before 7 a.m. is against their human rights. So getting patient A up at around 6:15, I let him have a soak and let him start his day the way he liked to, and promptly put the shop's mannequin in the now empty bed. Day shift started at 7 a.m, and I told a member of the new shift that I couldn't wake patient A up. She came out of the bedroom saying, "You haven't done your nursing checks, you haven't done your nursing checks. He's as stiff as a board." As I walked past her with patient A, I got punched for that. No idea why. And she didn't see the funny side for a few months, when grudgingly she admitted that it had been a good joke.